Emesis Blue is, at its core, a film about war. Every time I've watched this film, I've come to a different conclusion of it. At one point, I thought this film was about death, about self-preservation, about the human condition. But I've come to understand that what this film is really about is the lengths that people will go just to say, I won. The inhumanity that will be reached just to have the upper hand. This is a film about consequences, the consequences of that. It's a film about a 1% margin of error that defines its players' paths and stories. Which sounds really deep, doesn't it? So if you haven't seen Emesis Blue, go watch it now because I want to talk about this with you. I'm not holding back. This is it. This is my Emesis Blue video, and I have a lot to say about this beautiful, dark, frustrating film. So let's get into it. Yes, I said frustrating. So before you come at me with the pitchforks and torches, just hear me out.
I said frustrating. So before you come at me with pitchforks and torches, just hear me out.
I almost shied away from making this video completely, but then I remembered one crucial thing. Film is film. Art is art. No matter who made it or where it came from. Despite this being a very beloved project in the community, I think that it's important to make critiques with intent, with the purpose of education. I think that this film deserves to be taken seriously, even if that means I'll chop it up into little tiny pieces. But let's make it somewhat tasteful. And that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. So first and foremost, let's go through the story. Jules Archibald, a corrupt politician, develops a flawed respawn machine device by experimenting on death row inmates, which he then sells to the feuding brothers Redmond and Blutarch Man. He is then kidnapped and has gone missing by the time the movie's plot begins. Although the respawn device brings people back to life, it leaves them with severe physical and psychological damage. Mercenaries who use the device suffer from nightmares, hallucinations, and emotional instability. The film opens on shots of the respawn machine and its test subjects. The tone is immediately set. This isn't your run-of-the-mill goofy TF2 story. After the title card rolls, we see the medic having hallucinations of a masked figure leering over by the door of his office. He is snapped out of this trance when he hears Scout's voice. He's complaining about paranoia, nightmares, and pain caused by the respawn machine. Medic tells him that these machines tend to have a margin of error. Scout returns home only to witness the murder of his mother by a mysterious, unseen assailant. That scene is probably one of the most unsettling and best things I've seen come out of this community, because when I say that my expectations were subverted, I'm not exaggerating. Anyways, meanwhile, this is happening. Spy and soldier investigate the disappearance of Jules Archibald. They attempt to intercept the Heavy, who is delivering a briefcase. This leads to an altercation where Soldier kills the Heavy. However, the masked figure seen during the scene with Medic and the one who seemingly recorded their conversation escapes with the briefcase. Medic now wakes up from an out-of-body experience. He finds blood on his hands and receives pictures of the corpse of Scout's mother. He is directed to the red base, where he finds a coffin with Scout inside of it. He proceeds to let him out. The medic hurriedly takes off his friend's confines, so it comes as a surprise when the Scout punches him and says these words.
Wait, Scout! I'm trying to help you!
If I had a gun, I'd shoot you, you sick bastard!
Which leads us to do a little bit of a double take and wonder if Medic was involved in the murder of his mother. After Scout runs off, he is immediately met by the two brothers that reside in this base, who go on to torture him immediately as Medic attempts to rescue him. Medic ends up overpowering both engineers in a super badass and cool sequence that is just, it's so good. And takes the briefcase, and shortly after, suffers a psychotic break. As this happens, Spy and Soldier find traces of the medic at the murder scene and track him back to the base. During these next chapters, we find that reality starts to blur. As they descend into the base, they encounter temporal anomalies, zombies, and unfamiliar versions of their teammates, and we are left unclear on whether they're just hallucinations taking place from the respawn effect or something that's actually happening. When Spy and Soldier are separated, John encounters the Demo Man. In the coming scenes, we get another huge reveal when the demo wanders off into the laboratory, which he mistakes as a bar. He is greeted by another engineer who teaches him about the limbo-like state between respawns. Demo then is found frozen in a cloning lab, and it is inferred that he is in this limbo state while this is happening. Presumed dead, the soldier marches on, while Medic fends off the resurrected sniper and Pyro. Spy, after finding Archibald, kills him and forces Medic and Soldier into a game of Russian roulette, resulting in Medic's death. The soldier barely manages to get away from the heavy and flees the burning base. At Archibald's funeral, Spy, now posing as Archibald's successor, blames Medic for the murders. However, a resurrected Medic emerges from Archibald's coffin, shoots Spy, and fights his way out. Soldier defects, handing Medic the briefcase and helping him kill Blutarch Man. Medic escapes in an ambulance but dies in a car crash. In the end, he meets Archibald, Scout, and an engineer in purgatory as a mysterious figure emerges from a flaming respawn machine, leaving the story on a haunting, enigmatic note. Ooh, baby, that was a whole lot of movie. I don't have water. Hold on, let me go get water. So grab a drink because we're gonna get to analyzing it right now. This movie does so much in all the right places. I feel that I have to commend the director and all the people that participated in this project because it is just exquisite stuff, just like chef's kiss. It takes an unearthing amount of resources, time, and patience to create something from nothing. And cinema especially stands out from all other mediums of visual storytelling because of how many cogs and gears it takes to form something cohesive, something that works, something that ticks. SFM is also a software that's known for its many problems and obstacles, so a hand to the director, a golf clap to the director, and all participants of this project. And I feel like we have to talk about the elephant in the room because something that stands out above everything else in the story is the visual storytelling. You cannot, and I mean cannot, talk about Emesis Blue and exclude its most masterful use of cinematography and colors. It's everything. The film does such a wonderful job at expressing tonal shifts and beats with colors. So allow me to expand on why that's so important. Colors elicit certain emotional and psychological reactions. There is no understating that, and it is one of the most important aspects of filmmaking. Two characters experiencing intimacy under a red light is very different from a kiss under a blue light. In the world of filmmaking, color theory plays a crucial role. Far beyond just setting the mood or evoking emotions, it also signals to the audience the tone of the scene, helping to ground the story in a specific context. Additionally, color is instrumental in shaping our understanding of characters. Take, for instance, a character dressed in warm, bright hues. These colors typically suggest a sunny personality full of energy and extroversion. On the other hand, characters dressed in more subdued tones often come across as calm, reserved, and serious. Through color, filmmakers subtly guide our perceptions and deepen our connection to the story. It would be naive to state that, for example, yellow means happy and blue means sad. It really becomes variable at this point because every film has a unique color identity. Take the scene, for example. We are settled in this red and blue tone, which is self-explanatory. Red versus blue, war, the crux of the film, essentially foreshadowing the coming fight between these two. Usually, one color wraps around each side of the frame, so we know that it's going to go down. The engineer begins to play the piano, and for a split second during this scene, we get this pouring warm orange tone from the right and left of the screen. Orange has been established as a color of homeliness and safety in this film. How do I know this? A good example is the warm light of Scout's home, beckoning Scout to warm himself from the cold rain, where he is safe. As the music plays and the shot pans out, we get a sense that the engineer believes he's safe. He's safe enough to tickle the ivories a little bit, or so he thinks. When the camera cuts back to Medic, who holds a telephone cord in his hand, ready to strangle his ass, we get that violent, mostly red tone throughout their tussle. Red here is a color signifying violence, vitality, rage, and brutality, and this scene is the example of it. He is overpowered, and then we get this really lovely shot of his glove here with the red light hitting his palm, as if to say, death is coming. And so it does. So the Medic is down, and in this next top-down shot, the warmth of orange covers Fritz like a blanket. There is safety from him now. Now we cut back to the Medic, who lies there lifeless when suddenly he begins to revert to perfect health and wakes up in blue. In this cold light, With his eyes glowing a vibrant Arctic shade, he is in a state of shock. Blue as a color has also been established in this film, and its significance is literally the mundane. It's reality and things we can't control. It's that blue we see when Scout and Medic interact. The same blue when rain pours. It's real. This is his reality. This is out of his control. He realizes what's happening as he rises from his trance and sees the violent torture scene in the shadows of red. And the game is on again, where we see both colors, red and blue, in the final instance of the showdown. As the medic approaches, draped in blue, he holds the engineer by the throat, red shining on his face as he smashes his head with the piano lid. Red light covering one side of his face while the other one gets painted red by the blood of the engineer. Fully enveloped by violence, but retaining the reality in his blue eyes. Wow, just talk about subtext. Goddamn, this is brilliant. There are so many scenes I could have picked apart, but this one seemed the most fitting. The storytelling in just this scene is fantastic, and I think that's not the only thing that really makes this film stand out. Something quite unique about Emesis Blue is its structure. Now, it's really important to note here that this film is episodic, which means that it doesn't adhere to traditional storytelling. So, Emesis Blue is sectioned off into chapters, all revealing distinct things. Did you guys ever watch Everything Everywhere All at Once? Great film. Asteroid City? Great film. Tarantino also loves chaptering his films. So, how do you make an episodic film feel cohesive? In chaptered films, there's really an opportunity to have multiple shorter narratives that come full circle within these sections, which means there are multiple climaxes. And I think that's really neat because it allows for more thematic emphasis between sections and lets different character motifs shine through. In Emesis Blue, the chapters more so take on one character or situation at a time, so it makes it easier for the viewer to follow the narrative. And despite it seeming like non-traditional storytelling, it still follows the classic 3-act structure. If you guys aren't familiar with this plot diagram, it's pretty self-explanatory. Act 1, setup. Act 2, confrontation. Rising action, which takes you to a point of no return or climax, where finally we get Act 3, resolution. Tying up loose ends, or not. A lot of films follow the structure. How to Train Your Dragon follows it, where you get your setup in Act 1, which establishes Hiccup, Burke, and the dragons. Act 2 is where Hiccup and Toothless become friends and face the subsequent consequences, and resolution in Act 3, when Burke now accepts the dragons. That's a very simple example, but Emesis Blue follows that same diagram. So, storytelling is there. It's just that Emesis Blue suffers from one crucial thing: narrative cohesion. One of the main issues with Emesis Blue is that it requires multiple viewings to fully grasp what's happening. And no, it's not the segmented storytelling. Let me just explain. The first watch is everything. It will define rewatchability, interest, curiosity, and I have to say that it lost me. During my first watch, I was super impressed by the initial exposition, the tension, the stakes, and how everything was laid out in those first 35 minutes. However, as the film progressed, the purpose and intent of each scene became more difficult to discern. The lines blurred between hallucinations, specters, references, and zombies, even time travel, leaving reality hanging by a thread, ready to snap. And it often did, where I felt like I couldn't find my footing in the story. This was a collective note often found in the comments of Emesis Blue. It's like we all ended the film and collectively said, "What happened?" While many directors and writers prefer to show rather than tell, there's a limit to how much can be conveyed through repeated, distressing situations. Upon first viewing, most viewers will take things literally. All transitions, locations, and newly presented information are accepted at face value, unless there are clear indicators that something is off. Emesis Blue struggles in this area, leaving the audience questioning whether the ambiguity is intentional or a result of narrative confusion. Another aspect that slightly undercuts the impact of certain scenes in Emesis Blue is the use of references. Now, references in films aren't inherently bad. In fact, they can be powerful tools. Many directors use them to great effect. Take Quentin Tarantino, for instance, who borrowed the concept of chapters from old Western films. Emesis Blue is no different in this regard. It pays homage to a variety of works, with Dr. Strangelove and The Shining being some of the most notable influences here. However, while referencing other films can serve an effective narrative device, Emesis Blue occasionally crosses the line from homage to mimicry, in my opinion. The settings sometimes feel more like they were copy-pasted from other films rather than genuinely inspired by them. This is self-indulgence, so it brings up an important question. At what point does self-indulgence stop benefiting the plot? For Emesis Blue, that point is reached several times, and it's a real shame. It leads to narrative incohesion, which its sole root source is a lack of balance. In writing film and any piece of fiction, there are modes, such as action, introspection, recollection, summarization, and transition, that help create meaningful stories. When these elements are balanced, scenes serve a clear purpose. Emesis Blue lacks sufficient introspection, leaving the main characters like Fritz, John Doe feeling hollow. By the third act, I realized that I really didn't care about the protagonist as much as I should have. The only character I truly connected with was Scout, whose role became a turning point for Fritz, but even Fritz, who should have been rootable, felt disconnected from me. I wanted to know him. I wanted to know his fears. I wanted to hear his doubts. I wanted to connect with the front stage player. With a little more introspection and character development, Emesis Blue could have been a real masterclass in the exploration of the human condition. The circumstance that these characters find themselves in is incredibly disturbing, and that setting does wonders for showing a character's true lows. The environment that the director of Emesis Blue created is nothing short of wonderful, and I really wish that we would have gotten more introspection from our main cast, because, truth be told, I really like this film. I know I just spent like 5 minutes trashing this film. I'm a critical person. I think that I'm overly critical at times, which is not a particularly good trait of mine. I was partly trained as an actor, so I tend to overanalyze everything that I see. It's actually kind of torturous because I love movies so much. Being real here, anytime I go see a film is the one time I can say that I fully let my walls down. I become fully vulnerable. I like to be in the center of the film with those characters, exercising as much empathy as possible, being there with them, being them. So when I first saw that my favorite game ever got a whole fan-made feature film, I was fucking ecstatic. I watched it, I absorbed it, and I encountered problems with watching this movie for the first time. I tried to let my walls down, and I found that I couldn't connect as well as I wanted to, which turned me off from it. It turned me away from it. So I came into this video expecting to tear Emesis Blue to shreds. I had written so much about the pacing, the problems, expecting my critical side to come out face first for the whole world to see, and face the possible scrutiny that comes when you dissect a piece of art that is so beloved. But I have to say that after combing through this film and finding the details, the colors, the significance, those silent moments where the eyes tell more than a few lines of dialogue ever could, I found myself loving this dark and twisted world, this war and its extremes. I can clearly see now where the madness sets in, where the several points of no return are, and where the subtlety of the character's states of mind is. I now watch this and I can't look away. I think that this incredible piece of film will forever stand as one of the most significant projects in the history of the TF2 community, and dare I say film history. The first ever feature film of its kind, the first ever feature film made in SFM, and there's so much more there that I could say, but all of these reasons are what make Emesis Blue an excellent case study. To everyone that supported me in this thus far, I fucking love you. I love making videos. I love being open and vulnerable with you guys. I am literally leaving for a flight in like 26 hours, but I just had to make this. So thank you so much for watching. I'm also on Twitch as WekaSuwi every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. So I will see you guys there. Thank you for all of your support and all of your love. Bye.